Is there a misconception that philanthropy is not a space for women, especially females alone, going out there, going on ground and doing social work that could sometimes be unsafe?
Honestly, I think any work that you do as a woman will come with its risks. Anything that involves you being at a certain place at a certain time, I mean, we've seen it every day, right? Like harassment anywhere is possible. I think philanthropy got a bad name in the beginning because some of the areas were so remote and people didn't know what to expect. But I think organizations, communities, even corporates have become so mindful of this that everyone is trying to adopt best practices. And it's really lovely because there's been such a large drive, I feel like, in India about women empowerment and Beti Padhao and all of that sort of stuff, that more and more people are trying to engage with this space. And it's so much awareness highlighting how unsafe it is that even if you're doing like 110%, you feel like it's a necessary precaution. Do I think the landscape has changed in the last 10 years? Yeah, tremendously. Like, really, we never had an untoward incident that has occurred with the two of us. And we obviously work largely in Bombay in the beginning, but we always send two people together. But we've never had any reports of anyone feeling unsafe. I feel like in the space that we are, in the space where people are trying to really make a difference, anyone who can make it possible for them is trying to make life easier. And whether you're like a man or a woman, ultimately, I think it just boils down to like what your intentions are. And I think that every player in this space right now is just trying to make impact possible. So everyone's like bending over backwards to be like, how do we make it safe? How do we make it accessible? How do we make it like technology driven? And it's been lovely. I don't know any of our volunteers who've ever come back to us being like, we felt uncomfortable in this situation.
I mean, I think just another lens to this question is that I think there have been a lot of young women like us also who've joined the space. So if you're looking at like philanthropy as a career, lots of women are happy to join it. Like,
but this is recent.
Yeah, it's very recent. Like, I think since the last 10 years.
It is a new wave.
Yeah, for sure. I think also it's nice to see that, of course, there are young women who are joining the workforce, and like philanthropy is a career choice in your 20s. But it's like very nice to see like middle-aged women, like 50-year-olds and stuff. I think maybe they had a different life, and whatever, they were unable to work in their 20s and 30s. Now when their kids are grown up and in their 40s and 50s, I think maybe they don't need to make money, and that's not what's driving them. But I think volunteering and philanthropy is a great way for them to feel fulfilled and occupied. So even they are making their way back into the workforce through this. So I think it's not something that's like good career option for women, or at least many women are choosing it today.
And honestly, now I think technology has been such a game changer because people feel so much safer with like tracking phones. Like, it's not, we very rarely now get asked questions about safety. Like, is it okay for me to go? Will I be safe over here? And it's really, like you said, it's been a very recent but very wonderful sort of development in the space, I think.
And what have both your journeys been with working on such a mammoth project along with motherhood? I know both of you have small babies.
I mean, we were discussing this earlier today, and I think again for both of us, it's meant very different things. Like for me, I was telling Manati that being involved in something like ConnectFor is a way for me to sort of leave behind almost a legacy for my children. Not that like, look, I need you to work in the social space. This is what you need to do. But more that it doesn't matter how niche something feels. Like, if you feel strongly about it, you will make opportunities happen. And I think that just because of that sort of driving force, you feel still so invested. It's really just about like, what kind of message are you leaving behind? And I take a lot of pride in telling my kids that like, mama has to go to office, you go to school, we're all doing things to make ourselves better. And this is what we're sort of doing it for. Like, you need to be aware of the world around you. You need to think like, what position, what can I do for it? You might be incredible at something like really basic, maybe you'll be the best storyteller there is, but like you should pursue that. It doesn't mean that it's not worth your time or something like that. So I think for me, it's like really sort of doubled my resolve, in the sense that like you're creating something that someone who you're fully invested in is going to be influenced by. And I think that's the best legacy that you can leave behind for your kids, which is like, I was so passionate about something. I really followed what I wanted to do. And I want you to do the same thing. And that's the dream I have for, my kids, my nieces, nephews. Like, we have so many children around us. And I think all the time that they need to know that all careers are okay. It's amazing to be in a corporate job. It's amazing to make lots of money. And it's also okay to do something that may take a while, may seem like a slow start, but you just have to go every day and believe that you're building something of value. So, yeah, that's really been it for me, I think.
No, that's beautiful, for sure. What about you, Manati?
Like, I thought I'd be this person who'd be like back at office 3 months postpartum. And I think for me to like, I took my time. It took me about a year to like even sort of understand what I want, where I want. Like, I really wanted to go back to work, but like every time I went back to work, I'd feel like, okay, I need to be home, and like, has he done this and has he done that, and all of that. I still go through that every single day. Like, even right now, I'm like, oh my God, has he slept? It's like my mind is always like, it's really, I never thought I'd be that person who'd be like constantly thinking about somebody else. But I think it's very, very important for him to know that, Papa goes to work and Mama goes to work. And I mean, it's really funny because even at 2, I think he knows that, like, if you say I've gone to office, he'll be okay. Like, I don't know where that came from. Maybe he saw like my husband leaving for work every day. So now even if I'm not around and then Mama's gone to office, he's okay with it. So I think that's something nice for him
I
to
do
learn.
think they kind of come to
Yeah.
terms with it. And
Yeah.
they've like subconsciously accepted it, because the dads have, in most cases, gone back immediately.
Yeah.
Right? And they keep hearing it. Even if
Yeah.
you're not directing it to them, I think that some way.
But also there's a lot of research to indicate that in terms of role modeling, right? For like young girls or even young boys, having a mother who works or is engaged with some kind of occupation is actually very advantageous for them later on, in terms of them feeling a sense of pride, in terms of them accepting that from future partners, or like having the same expectations and things like that. It's a really, I think, good step in terms of normalizing this whole thing. Like, I feel like now I'm a little bit done with this conversation of like, oh, like, does a woman work and all. Like, we have to, whether you're a homemaker, whether you're like working as an entrepreneur, you're working a corporate job, ultimately it's work. You're putting your heart and soul into something, and just because it's not defined by the hours that you put in, you can't take away from the effort.
I mean, the important conversation is that today, when leaders like both of you, right, are open about the flexibility, you're open about there being room for conversation and discussion, that's when it really trickles down, right? First to your team, but then also like largely to tier 2, tier 3, where this is not a conversation that's had enough. It's actually not normalized at all, because there it's still so many that are really struggling with just something as simple as you're going to slow down after having kids, which will be very normal for like tier 1 kind of, girls like us that have had access to great education and opportunity as well. But it's amazing to kind of, when leaders like you will mirror that, is when it's going to be able to trickle
But you'll
down.
be interested, Masoom, at least in what we see, is that most of our NGOs that are working in even tier 2 and tier 3 cities are coming up with like vocational occupations for married women or women who have children, and it really becomes like a community project. Like, we've seen so many times that like running sort of like a water filter system is like the women's responsibility, and no one thinks it's like odd or awkward or like they shouldn't do it, or like teaching has for so long been like a female profession for most people. And like, sure, if you're teaching at home and you're just teaching your kids, and meanwhile it may not be recognized as a profession, but now more and more people, I feel like, whether it's about going back to embroidery, where like vocational training push has been so great in India for the last 5-6 years. And so many organizations have done such fantastic work, even through aggregators like Dasra and all, that this idea of like women won't be employed after having children, I feel like it's even reduced in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And I'm really happy to see that. Like, I feel almost like I feel hypocritical to go out and say that, like, we feel like, yeah, women in the smaller towns don't really get an opportunity. We did a project right now with a company in Australia to work with a community of people in like the remotest parts of Gujarat. And like the number one vocation that people were interested in over there was hairdressing and makeup, because there's such a demand for it. So the girls there wanted to learn just how to like do a good blow dry and do it. But they were so driven, and they were like, then we'll go to like the slightly larger towns and we can make it work. But even every like small town was invested in this, like, self-care and like beauty as an industry. And it was
Of
amazing.
course,
for
but that's
us.
where you come in, right? They can have that hope and they can have the desire.
Yeah.
But for them to actually fill in the blank and get that training to go to step 2 is where an organization
think
and a thought
Yeah.
like this needs to come in. Today, if you're not that open-minded and you feel like there's other sectors that require, say, more than women do, that impact won't kind of bubble up.
We had a volunteer in Bangalore who used to travel about 100 kilometers a day from Bangalore
Oh
city
my God.
to rural Bangalore to do menstrual hygiene workshops with schools, and because that's where you see the dropout rate. So now the goal is not really to get women as a part of the workforce, but to
It's to
get
make
them
them stay.
is to make them stay, is to make them do jobs that are, like, not, of course, if they'd like to do jobs like beauticians and, be hairdressers, great. But if they want to be part of like data teams, they want to be part of consulting teams, they should have access to that. So I think, I think there's a sort of shift in the entire narrative around this. So we have worked on a bunch of things, and like Shloka said, there's the very important project that we worked on was the one with the company in Australia where they want to target 100,000 women in 5 years.
To train them.
To impact 100,000 women.
Yeah.
Like you can
Okay.
impact
Across
them however, through whatever interventions in rural India. So,
And honestly, I always say to Manati also that, like, for me, ambition doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be audacious. And I think that, like, that's what our women have. And for a long time, the things holding us back was just safety, right? What was the reason that you didn't have so many women working a variety of jobs? It was because they were worried. Like, families were worried. They were anxious about what their girls would see, learn, how they would come home. Like, when you're changing that dialogue, when you're looking at ways to improve the way women are treated, automatically all outcomes for women will improve. And I think as long as you encourage quiet, any kind of ambition really, whether it's quiet, loud, audacious, like hesitating, as long as they find a way forward, there's really no holding women back.